James is talking about Revolution and Dictatorship. I made him some fried potatoes from my outside kitchen. And I'm going to be talking about Relic. And it was an excellent movie. I only watched one movie. So, yeah. So I don't have very much to talk about.
We were both pretty busy yesterday. You wrote a lot of stuff. One poem I can recall in particular was quite good. And then a lot of yard work for you. And I did housework, deck work, and some yard work as well. And then
I just basically
some reading. Yeah.
Anyway, so I watched this movie, and honestly, Emily Mortimer is one of my favorite actresses, so she rarely lets me down.
English, right?
Yeah,
I think I know who you're talking about. Just
yeah,
let me see.
I didn't.
Sorry. Oh yeah, I think
I wouldn't have pegged her as a horror movie actor or actress, but whatever she prefers, I don't know. But this is a very different kind of horror movie. It's awesome. And I don't want to give too much away from it. It says, terrifying, turns the haunted house story on its head. And the story is really well crafted. It's about, mostly about women aging, but I mean, it could be anybody aging, honestly, but in this case, it's about women aging, and how, especially with older people who require care, they're not able to care for themselves anymore. Their mind's slipping, and they're not the person that they used to be. It seems like something else has taken over or something. And in a lot of cases, I mean, we had a close friend that he was slipping. And it gets scary sometimes, and I'm sure it's scary for them, but it's very scary for the people around them. Because at least with the person who's losing their grasp on things, although they're really terrified, they're really scared at some point about something. They're scared that oftentimes he'd come over and he was terrified because the cable guy had stolen his telephone or something like that, right?
That's what he figured.
Yeah, or he'd get these. He was very certain about these things, or he'd be sure that somebody had came over and was threatening him or something, and we were just like, that wouldn't have happened, that. It took us a while to figure it out, but until sometimes there were common fears that they'd loop back, right? So we'd hear it again and we'd go, okay, this didn't happen the last time, so this is not happening now, right? But I mean, it's scary for the elderly person who's losing their grasp on things, but at least they're going to forget it again for a while, whereas you're having to deal with trying to calm this person down, and he might get violent with you. He might be thinking, or in this case it's a woman, right? But he might be thinking you're trying to attack him, and then where is this going to go, right? So, yeah. Everyone needs to watch this movie. They did a great job on it. And I hope I didn't give too much away. But anyway, I guess James is going to talk about...
With his friend, it should be pointed out, in case anyone recognizes it, I never really felt fear.
Okay.
He did talk in sort of fearsome terms.
Yeah.
But I think to a large extent...
No, I don't think he was afraid of us at any point. I didn't get that impression.
I think
he always
even
thought we were a safe place to come to.
other people that he'd be afraid of weren't in danger. So I had an aunt who slipped pretty far. And I never felt, she didn't even talk in terms of threat or anything like that.
Yeah.
She was at worst, innocuous
Mm-hmm.
when she was lucid. And this friend of ours was a very pacific kind of fellow. So I never
He was always
felt
friendly with
physically
us.
threatened.
And he was
by him.
friendly with us at the end too. He was just really terrified. He'd come over, you know, in a sweat sometimes. He was really genuinely terrified about whatever thing I
Yeah, that he was imagining
Yeah.
had happened to him. So I met one guy at the hospital just outside the cancer clinic a while back, maybe 5 years back. I went up and said, "Hey, you remember me? We used to play soccer together." And his wife just came up and said, "Don't bother."
yeah.
So he would have been there for some, presumably health reasons, but maybe they were monitoring a problem with his memory. Just when I looked in his eyes, they were totally blank. But I ran across another person who knew this fellow that I used to play soccer with. And this third person said, "Holy smokes, his mother had some problems slipping his buddies." And so he'd seen this guy played soccer with in context. And he was he was a big guy, a risk, a danger. And then I asked this guy, I started thinking about playing soccer with this guy who's slipping. And I asked this guy, "Is your mother ever a problem?" "Oh, no." And then I was thinking about this. The reason why I asked the question was I was thinking about playing soccer with this guy. And I remember he was infamous, really, for his shoulder-to-shoulder checks and stuff like that. He's from the old country, I'll say the British Isles. I won't say which one of the components of the United Kingdom he came from, in case someone might recognize him. But I kind of got along with him because he kind of played the ball on the ground. But it was and it was like pickup with soccer too, and he was ridiculous with his violence. I mean, it wasn't out and out violence, but it was, like if it had been a referee, I would have called him. He would have been red carded out of every pickup game. That's 3 occurrences. You got your yellow card, and one more, there, you're gone. So that sort of stuff. So I think a lot of times when people are a threat, when they start getting Alzheimer's or something like that, they were
probably a threat to begin with. Yeah.
It's just gotten out of control. I think in most cases it would be guys, but there'd be exceptions. So that one movie that was kind of, you didn't watch it. I'm going to be watching it. It's some sort of political movie. I just remembered the trailer, and I thought, you must have watched that movie, but no.
No.
She saw the
Get
trailer
to that one
and
later.
said, this is right up James's alley. And the political stuff is not up my alley. It's just no one is pointing out all the echo chambers that are out there, global corporation echo chambers, the flunkies that blew up the world economic system in 2008, and we're still going through all the reverberations from that, the Arab winter brought on by the Arab fall, which was misnomered, the Arab Spring, ISIS, Putin going nuts, Syria, which isn't entirely ISIS. The Alawites are in power. Not all Alawites are bad, but the Ba'athist party in power in Syria back then, and still now with the connivance and terroristic support of the Putin. I was going to say the Russians, but not all Russians are bad. And Trump, populism all over the world, Bolsonaro in Brazil, on and on it goes. So global corporations and their apologists and flunkies have their echo chamber. The hefty lefties, as I call them, have their echo chambers. BBC, CBC. It sounds like ABC from Australia, not the ABC from the United States, and they're working hand in mailed glove with the anarchists and the commies. They tend to call themselves Marxists nowadays. Marx is rolling over in his grave, if he's at all cognizant in the afterlife of what folks are doing in his name. That's not to say he was a great dude by any means. He called his predecessors in the socialist camp and many of his contemporaries utopian socialists. And the trouble with Marx, or one of the major troubles, I think the major trouble, was he was a dystopian socialist. He believed in using the state, i.e. the military, and the army to get rid of the state. It would be, in this case, militias, to get rid of the state. And so there'd be a period of dystopia, but he too was a utopian, because that would bring on the phase of, that would end the period of dialectical materialism, like the thesis, antithesis, synthesis, which, according to Hegel, and I guess according to Marx, kind of like drove history. But it was going to end. Why would it? Why would history, a la Francis Fukuyama, is that his name? It's a little early in the morning, I'm a little bit dozy and sleepy. The guy who famously or infamously, about a generation ago, declared an end to history. Yeah, right. I mean, that was my reaction then. And it's even more so now. And so there's that the nifty shifty hefty lefty echo chamber. There's the Donald Trump echo chamber, the Fox Network, the populist kind of echo chamber. There's the echo chambers coming out of and many of them in the West, so-called West. It's really the rest. Are supporting populism and stuff like that. Echo chambers coming out of Russia, echo chambers coming out of China, People's Republic of China. And I'm not talking about Taiwan, which I gather since about 2000, by comparison with almost all the rest of the world, has been a paragon of virtue. Similar thing with South Korea since about 1987, maybe. Something like a paragon of virtue by comparison with the way of the world. And then there's the various religious echo chambers on top of the list. The Muslim echo chamber, but Hindutva, the Hindu echo chamber, Neo-Hinduism, Hindu echo chamber, propagated and propagandized by Modi and his crew. And I'm not that thrilled with the Catholic echo chamber, although since the new Pope has come in, kind of like a kinder, gentler Pope, particularly by comparison with his immediate predecessor, but also by comparison with John Paul II. Never got around to George Ringo yet. I'm waiting for the day. George Ringo the First. And stuff like that. Echo chamber after echo chamber. And I'm trying to give you an antidote to all those echo chambers. They're all corporatist. They're all of them. It doesn't matter if they're right, left, center, up, down, back. A lot of them are really back. There's some sort of fundamentalism involved. Like with the corporatists, the fundamentalism is Adam Smith, laissez-faire, classical liberal economics. Adam Smith's writing 1776, and his the example that he uses is pin factory. What? Nowadays, people are churning out industries, big industries are churning out jets, they're turning out missiles. What's that have to do with making a pin? I've been reading Milton Friedman, something that he wrote in conjunction with, I think it's his wife or daughter or something like that, someone shared the same last name. I'd be ashamed to share the same last name with Milton Friedman, much less the author credit and the title of one of his books. And this apparently is not the first time this woman, Jane Friedman or something like that, or Jan Friedman, can't remember. Maybe I can't bother to be remembered. Or can't be bothered to remember. I'm still trying to wake up, sorry for it. And still trying to wake up from yesterday. I'm being ironic. Right? Hey, here's the blue jay. He's over. Do you want to get a picture?
If I get up, he would just leave.
Well, maybe you can go inside or something.
I do see him.
Is he feeding
He's
on
very sweet.
the...
Trying to turn the camera.
Oh, he's taken off.
Is he okay?
Wow.
Man,
He saw
I just
you.
have to
Wow.
think about it and go. He teases me every day.
I think he's a little less threatened by me. I don't know why. Maybe it's because you wear more colorful clothing.
Maybe
You
because
look
I
like a
aim the
bird.
camera at him and he thinks it's a BB gun or something.
Well, he's a very smart little fella.
He is.
I realize why the magpies are flirting around with the cars. They're doing a similar thing to the robins, I think. They've got nestlings, right? And they're trying to misdirect.
Maybe, or maybe they're trying to kill the robins so they can eat their nestlings.
It's just I saw them today, and there were robins a long ways away down the block, and when I started, and there were tons of magpies around. Anyway, you're not going to get the echo chamber from me, because I'm a little bit like George Orwell. Someone characterized him as a perpetual dissident. I don't think initially he was dissident enough. I think he was basically fighting on the side of the commies in the Spanish Civil War, and he saw how they were operating. And it took him a little while to turn in print away from them, because that war, I believe, ended in 1939, the same year that World War II began. It wasn't until the end of World War II, 1945, roughly the end of World War II, that George Orwell came up with Animal Farm. Maybe it took him 6 years or so to write it. I don't think of it as being a great classic literature or anything like that. Almost like a kid's story. But I think some people get the message. Something that he put out a little bit later. I think he was writing it up in 1948. He changed around the last digits to get 84. 84. I think it was published in 1949. People didn't get the message. It was a little bit more grown-up message or something like that. So you can call one commie saying, this was in the 80s, Thatcher era in England. And this guy was saying, wow, this is what George Orwell was writing about. Margaret Thatcher, the conservatives in England. I'm going, you have no clue. He wrote it 100% about the commies. Later on, in one interview at least, he was saying, yeah, it's about totalitarianism, but I think he didn't want to disappoint the interviewer or something like that. It's about communism. It's about commieldom. The application you can make from it to Nazism, maybe. Fascism is a bit of a stretch, and that brings us to the point of this book by a somewhat circuitous but not devious. So if you were following yesterday, all 6 of you, or 1.5 of you nifty, shifty lefties, the half is the halfway. Well, it's probably a couple of 3/4 width. Anyway, the thesis of this book is the violent origins of durable authoritarianism. And so they picked out a few revolutions. They were very selective, too selective, I think, in defining what revolutions were. So they covered 14 in relative detail in the book. They might have selected a couple more, but they didn't cover it in detail. They should have. If you're going to do something this long, you better do it comprehensively. So this book is it's over 600 pages. I believe it's 650 pages. And when you've got that much stuff, you should cover things comprehensively. So, yeah. So the big trouble is, in case the camera cut out before I could get to this one particular point, it's important, I think. And that is that, and when I say I think, I'm just kind of leaving you with a possible out. They're saying, oh, you know, like if the more violent a revolution is, the more likely the regime it brings in will last, be durable, in other words, in their words, their terms. But they say, oh, you know, like in its, sometimes these revolutions can almost like be nipped in the bud, you know, like the Taliban, they call it revolution. So when did they come to power? 1996 or something like that. Afghanistan, and 5 years later, maybe a little over 5 years later, and 2001, they're gone to Rapunzel. Of course, they're back, you know, a little bit like cancer, you know, hard to get rid of. And you've got Bella Kun's failed little attempt at social experiment or anti-social experimentation in Hungary after World War I. And for the moment, for the nonce, shall we say, I've forgotten the third main one they dealt with. Oh yeah, I think they've mentioned Nicaragua under the Sandinistas. Of course, they're back too. Hard to get rid of these nether sphincters. Pardon my highfalutin French. So they're back and bigger and badder than ever. So yeah, and they mentioned Ghana too as being Ghana. Didn't work out so well for Kwame Nkrumah. Way back when, starting about 1958, he was gone to Rapunzel within a decade, maybe half a decade. And, oh yeah, Cambodia, classic, you know, they were gone in roughly 5 years, thanks to their friendly neighborhood police state, policing the whole neighborhood, the Vietnamese. And, you know, like there's a problem with that, because you see, if the violent origins make for durability, and it's basically based on people getting radicalized in the violence of the violent revolution, well, you see, like, nature has this way of taking people, you know, like people get killed, like in purges, in these violent revolutionary regimes. they get whacked trying to export the revolution. Example, Che Guevara trying to export the revolution in Cuba to Bolivia. When did he die? About 67 or something like that. I'd love to, it's funny, there's a picture circulating around, I don't think it's been photoshopped because it dates back quite a ways, of Che Guevara being sent off by Fidel somewhere in Cuba, presumably Havana. And Che is dressed up like a business kind of guy. You can see, like the little suit coat he's wearing can't hide. He's running to chubbiness. I'd love to see people strutting around the streets trying to look revolutionary with this picture of Che dressed like a little Western business guy, showing off the pudge here, stuff like that. Instead of the thing where he looks like the second coming of Jesus Christ. He's looking up in the air and he's got that revolutionary beret and all this kind of stuff. He's a pudgy little putz. That's what he really was. Violent. Thoroughly misguided. A pudgy little putz. Particularly pudgy between the ears. So, this is the problem with their thesis. The revolutionary regime should be most durable in the sense of being able to withstand internal and external shocks right at the beginning. But they're not. These guys raise a fair number of, that's a significant number. What was that? 4 out of their 14 examples are short-lived regimes. They are counterexamples. And I think on most statistical science standards, it's statistically significant. You know what I'm saying? 2 out of 7. That's almost 30% of the cases. I think a better fit would be what causes durable regimes. 2 things: violence. So ruthless violence, to use, like Lenin's little adjective, ruthless. He applied that to a lot of different things. You have to be ruthless here. There he's using it. We have to be, that's a pretty good adjective. And we're going to be ruthless. We're going to be exercising. We're going to have a ruthless revolution. We have to be ruthless. On and on again. Classic sound chomp from Lenin. And so you need ruth for this kind of durability. I won't say need, but it helps. There's other ways of having durability. The United States has had a relatively durable political entity going back to 1776 or 1783. That's getting up to 250 years. It's a long time. A lot longer than the communists lasted in the Soviet Union. They lasted something like 7 parts. Well, basically 74 years.